Karma could be described as a repetitive pattern in the activity of mind. And if the mind has a habit of acting in a certain way, then that habit will continue, and it will somehow attract circumstances that enable that habit to flourish. And for this reason, if we, for instance, if our mind has a habit of a deep habit of fearing abandonment, we may find ourselves in repeating relationships in which we feel that we are abandoned. This would be just an example of the correspondence between our inner life, our inner emotional life, and in this case, relationships or activities that we encounter, or situations that we encounter in the world. So, whilst that is true, these patterns are patterns of thinking and feeling and acting. They are patterns of the mind. They do not pertain to awareness. King Lear may find that his repetitive thoughts and feelings result in repetitive situations and relationships in the world. In other words, he may feel that his thoughts and feelings and actions come round again and again and again. But none of these affect John Smith. In other words, he is completely free of the karmic patterns, the repetitive patterns that King Lear experiences. John Smith does not need to be made free. He does not need to work hard to free himself from the effects of karma. He is innately free. Likewise, our essential nature, the simple fact of being aware or awareness itself, is not subject to karma. So rather than trying to change these karmic patterns or habitual patterns, the most effective way of being free of them is to go to that place in yourself which is already and always and inherently free of them. Before this building was erected, this space was in exactly the same condition that it is now in. Then the building was put up. What happened to the space? Did its nature change? Did it suddenly become a limited space? Did it suddenly acquire the qualities of the four walls of the room? Or did it remain as it was prior to the building going up? It remains the same. One day this building will be taken down. What will happen to the space? Will it be suddenly liberated from its limitations? No, it didn't acquire any limitations to begin with. Well, that's exactly the same as our being. When our being is clothed in experience, that's like the building of the four walls. Our being never really becomes conditioned by the content of experience. It always remains as it is. That's what Jesus meant. Before Abraham was, I am. What I am is before the birth of Abraham, let alone before the birth of this body. So what he's trying to indicate is that what I essentially am has not been born into a body, is not in time. So in just the same way that this space was not generated by the four walls, it pre-existed them, and it remains the same throughout the duration of the building and will remain unchanged when the building is demolished. It won't suddenly reunite with the greater space of the universe, because it was never a separate space separated from it in the first place. Likewise, our being was never born into a body. It was never incarnated, just like this space was never born into the four walls of this room. It was just temporarily clothed in experience. So our being is never incarnated. It's never in the body. It fills the body, just like the space in this room fills this room, but it's not located in this room. So our being, our self, is not incarnate, and therefore there's no question of it reincarnating. And the karma pertains to the layers of experience, the thoughts, feelings, sensations, perceptions. There are patterns of experience. So there is some continuity at the level of experience. And there's nothing to say that at the level of mind, thoughts, feelings, images, memories, perceptions, there is continuity there, and there's nothing to suggest that continuity may not survive the death of the body, that the mind may not survive the death of the body. But the karma doesn't pertain to who we are, to who we really are. So it's in that context that I say, I don't believe in karma, that our being doesn't undergo any karma. The separate self that we seems to be does seem to undergo karma and reincarnation and so on.
So the space wouldn't have any karma, but the building itself might have. Because it may have been built by a builder who badly builds houses in general or something.
Exactly. And as a result of the poor building, when we were here 2 years ago and the roof was put on, and if the building company were not a good company, in 2 years' time the roof will start leaking. And that will be the building's karma that was laid down, say, in February last year, when the Karuna's gone, when the builders were here putting on the roofs. Yes, so the karma, there's a cause and effect for the building, but no cause and effect for the space. Nothing that happens to the roof, whether it leaks or whatever colours you paint the walls, or when they extend the walls, nothing will happen to the space. There's no karma for the space. There's no karma for our being. There's karma for the mind.
So we just need to keep being the space, and then we have no problems.
Exactly. I couldn't
Thank you.
Couldn't say it any better. Keep being the being. Keep being the space. Keep being your being. There are no problems for being. Yeah, exactly.
Is it just all random then? That one person finds love, another person doesn't? One person has good health, another person doesn't. Can you say something on that?
No, I don't think it is all just random. And it's very easy to check this in your own experience. There are patterns and habits to the way your own finite mind functions. You have ways of thinking, ways of feeling. Your perceptions are consistent from one day to another. You always wake up, or nearly always, in the same bedroom, in the same home. So these are patterns in the way your mind functions, and ultimately they are patterns of the way consciousness functions, because each of our minds is the functioning of consciousness. But what is important to understand about karma is that it is not only our own past actions that go into the make of our body and mind and subsequently play out in the future. Remember the whirlpool, to go back to, am I allowed to use Bernardo's metaphor? Remember the whirlpool is not just made up of the residual energies left over from the previous dissolving whirlpool, but when the previous whirlpool dissolves, it is mixed with the currents that are present in the broader medium of the stream. And it is the mixture both of the residual elements of the individual whirlpool plus the shared ripples that exist outside the whirlpool in the stream that go into the make of the next whirlpool. So that is why I said that we inherit, if this model of coalescing and dissolving whirlpools, it is a reasonable model for reincarnation. It's why I said sometime earlier this week that each whirlpool is not just, we don't just inherit our own previous thoughts and feelings, but we inherit them from our parents, from our communities, from our nation, even from our species. So whatever happens to us, in other words, whatever happens to us is not just governed by the thoughts, feelings, activities and relationships that we previously engaged in. The thoughts, feelings, activities and relationships of the broader medium of mind also impact on the formation of our minds. So for instance, Adrian yesterday referred to being German. In each of us, we inherit not only patterns, habits of thinking and feeling from our parents, but we also inherit patterns of thinking and feeling from our community or our particular nation. And that is different if you're English or French or German or Japanese or Spanish. So we inherit impersonal habits from our environment and our culture, which go into the make of our body-mind. So the next question to ask is, well, who then is responsible for our actions if the causes of our actions can be traced back not only to our own personal thoughts and feelings, but if each body-mind is a repository of all the thoughts and feelings that have ever taken place in the broader medium of mind, then ultimately who is responsible? There is no individual person who is solely responsible, because each individual person is made up of the ripples that come from the community or the nation or the species. Now, of course, this needs to be qualified. That's not a license to absolve ourselves from any responsibility for our personal actions. Of course, we need to take responsibility for our personal actions, but ultimately, and I only say ultimately, no individual person is responsible.
Where does effort come in when everything is already decided?
The effort you make is already decided.
So then there's nothing for you to do, there's nothing that you really need to...
Well, no, making an effort may be required. Even if everything is decided, you still may, your body and mind still may have to make an effort to accomplish whatever is to take place.
But when you make that effort, it feels like...
But you make the effort without a vested interest in the outcome. So your effort it's effortful, but it is suffused with peace. Because the destiny has already been accomplished, namely peace.
Mm-hmm.
The effort you make is just the unfolding of your body-mind, or whatever is required in response to the situation. But you're not deeply invested in the outcome. You may have a local investment in the outcome, but deep down, what you want, you already have. And the outcome of your effort isn't going to make any difference to that. So you can still make an effort. Your body and mind may still be engaged in the world, making an effort if appropriate, but inside there's this deep feeling of peace, irrespective of the outcome of your efforts. As to the necessity to purify one's karma, this is part of the traditional progressive path. The progressive path starts with the person, starts with King Lear, miserable, and King Lear gradually purifies himself of his thoughts, his feelings, his activities, his relationships, the deeper layers of his psyche, his residual samskaras. He goes back and back and back, and as a result of this purification, gradually washing his mind clean of all this obstruction, he recognizes his true nature. That's the progressive path approach. You spend 20 years purifying your mind in order to have the recognition, I am pure consciousness. In this approach, the direct approach, the purifying of the mind and the body is not considered a prerequisite to the recognition of our true nature. King Lear does not have to do anything to his relationships, his thoughts, his feelings, his activities. All he has to do is ask himself the question, who am I essentially? And if he asks that question with enough love and intensity and interest, that question will take him directly to the knowledge, I am John Smith. So in this approach, it's not necessary to the purification of the mind is not a prerequisite for the recognition of our true nature. After the recognition of our true nature, as we turn round again and face the experience of the body and the mind, we then try to infuse our experience of the body and the mind and the world with our new understanding. So these yoga meditations that we've done the last couple of mornings would be part of this post-enlightenment sadhana, as Francis once called it. The sadhana that the spiritual practice that we do after the recognition of our true nature, with the intention of permeating the entire spectrum of our experience with the light of pure knowing and its innate peace. So on the progressive path, the purification of the body-mind is considered a prerequisite to the recognition of our true nature. On the direct path, it happens after the recognition of our true nature. I've always found the idea of karma, as it is conventionally portrayed in the spiritual traditions, as being a little heavy. It's usually bound up with a sense of personal responsibility and guilt. And fear. I'm not denying that there is no that what we do doesn't have an effect. What we think doesn't have an effect. But I don't see that as I don't see that fact as a reason for changing what we do, or manipulating our behavior or experience our behavior. I think the change of behavior comes from something much deeper inside. And it often brings with it a feeling of guilt that reinforces the sense of the separate self. The belief that we'll reincarnate in the future is based on the belief that I, consciousness, am incarnate now. We are not incarnate now. There's no question of reincarnating in the future. Consciousness is never incarnate. Consciousness is never in the body. Even now, the body is in consciousness. So the belief in reincarnation and the fear of reincarnation and practicing in order to prevent us having to reincarnate in this awful experience of the world just reinforces the sense, I am incarnate now. I am incarnate now is the root of the separate self. That's what the separate self is. I, consciousness, am in the body. That's what ignorance is. That's what the ego is. Stick to your experience. Stick to your experience that what you essentially are, the simple experience of being aware, is not born. Nobody has ever experienced it appearing. What would have the experience of awareness appearing? It would have to be aware. So it is our experience. It's not an extraordinary experience, I am unborn. It is in fact everybody's simple experience. Nobody has ever experienced or witnessed the appearance of consciousness. It's not possible. It's a presumption. It's a presumption on which our world culture is founded, but no one's ever had the experience. No, stick to your experience. You were not born. You consciousness were not born. You consciousness are not presently located in the body. The body is a series of sensations and perceptions that is appearing in you.